Hi, this is Asim.
This is Sujoy.
This is Amrita.
And you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast about the three main Khans of the Hindi film industry.
Aamir,
Salman,
and Shahrukh.
Hi, you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast regular feed. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We now have a Patreon channel with bonus content and exclusive merch for those of you who would like to support us. Every dollar goes towards creating more and better content. Visit us at patreon.com/Khandaan podcast.
welcome to a new episode of Khandaan podcast. My name is Asim Bernie. I'm joined by my Lee host, Sujoy. Hey, Sujoy.
Hi, Asim.
I don't know how long I'm going to keep going with this joke, man. I don't know. Probably not long because it's quite a terrible joke. Amrita could not join us, unfortunately. Maybe she knew which movie we were picking, so she just skedaddled. But we have the original, the OG curry smuggler Paresh with us. Hey, Paresh.
Hey, good afternoon, morning.
Hey,
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh. Everybody, yes, how are you?
It's Diwali, by the way. Happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
We're post Diwali. I'm looking at my hands. I have all my digits intact, which is good.
Yeah, this is good. No, I'm just saying, the state of India, if you start a Diwali podcast with a full salam, that might get us cancelled more than the Shahrukh Khan jokes that are coming.
Yes, fair warning.
We wanted to have Paresh on for a long time. And like I was saying, our schedules have been just crazy. But we're so happy to have you back on. Paresh, first, let's talk a bit about curry smugglers because I have a few questions. One question that I do want to ask you afterwards. But me and Paresh, we've been friends for a hell of a long time. Still our hair was black more, our friendship goes long. But that's also your podcast was the start of it, right? You want to tell us about the curry smugglers and for the Khandaan people that maybe haven't listened to the show?
Sure. So thank you for giving me the space to do this. First things first is I'm glad to be back. So curry smugglers started in 2009 before podcasts were a thing. When we were telling people, and my ex-partner Sachin and I, when we started this up, when we were starting it up, we were telling people about our podcast and everybody's like, yeah, your podcast kya hai? Right? And it wasn't a thing. In 2009, they just weren't a thing. So I wouldn't say trailblazed, but we definitely were canary in the coal mine kind of situation. Let's just try it and see what happens, right? So our first episode went out and we were it sounded bad. The first season of Smugglers, I've never made a re-available. It's bad, right? And the music was great, but the hosting was bad. We hadn't found our mojo and rhythm yet. And we pushed it and suddenly there's 300 downloads. And the next week there's 700 downloads. And the fourth week there's 3,000 downloads. Okay, we have something, right? So if for the people from Khandaan, who don't know what Curry Smugglers is or was, it was in its old avatar a talk radio show, kind of like Khandaan, but mainly focused around underground DJs out of India who were producing in their bedrooms or their basements and working the local clubs, taking Bollywood music that we all know and love, classics, new classics, everything from the 50s on to yesterday morning, and mixing it with house, techno, EDM, Romanian house, Arabic, Bhangra, it was just fun, creative stuff. I think the sweet spot was 2010 to 2014 before T-Series decided to flex their balls, right? and start copyright smacking everybody. And then when we got to a point where we evolved after 91 episodes, things happened in life and we had to walk away from it. And I walked away from it because it wasn't giving me joy. Pandemic pandemic happens, and my current partner goes, "You're driving me insane. Pull your decks out, do a live stream." And I brought Smugglers back in April of 2020, and I've been going back since. Took the talk radio format away, and now it's just an anthology where I spin live and drop it on Smuggler Sundays. So Sundays at noon.
Yeah, and even I kind of lost track of the feed, so I had to resubscribe because I'd missed out, and I saw that you were uploading on SoundCloud. And I still love your chill episodes. I still have them. I still listen to them. and I think those are really like a crowd favorite too, right? Like the chill ones.
Yeah, the chill ones. So when Smugglers was started, it was the Uns EDM brand, and that's what we were. We were the party podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the seasons, we got to talking, and my friend Vishal, who's been on Smugglers as well, we're like, yeah, but the two of us like this chill stuff. Let's just throw it out there. Let's just throw an episode out there and see what happens. And we got so much positive response that we decided to make it an anthology podcast. So one every year or one every other year. And then I'm 11 episodes of Chill in, and that has taken about 60% of all the downloads ever for the show.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big deal. I mean, when Chill comes out, we're finding artists off of YouTube, we're finding artists off of SoundCloud, Mixcloud. Like, our hands get dirty and our computers get viruses. Like, it's the old LimeWire days. Like, oh god, And so, but we find these people. Like, there's and again, don't want to take too much time, but there's a guy in Birmingham, Amal Lad. He is a doctor and a Gujarati doctor from the UK, born and raised. An amazing musician, and we gave him the lead-off spot on a Chill episode, and I still get DMs today for Chill 4, which was released in 2013. That hey, I found this guy, I love his music. So 9 years later, it's still paying off.
And I think you briefly mentioned T Series. I think when Curry Smuggler started, like I don't think even T Series had figured out what their online presence was going to be, and I think you guys could. It was almost those pirate radio days where you could, there was no people where you could just really release a remix of Munni Badnaam Hui and it would fly, and now you couldn't even try that, right?
No, you can't. And so I'll tell you that we were in good shape, and the DJs who fed our system were in good shape until Farah Khan decided that she did not want a remix of Om Shanti Om out there. And once that happened, the feces started flying.
And
so if Smugglers is gone, blame Farah Khan.
And the one question I wanted to also ask you is, because music is such a big part of your life.
Yes.
And I'm gonna then ask Sujoy this question because he's also more musically minded than I am. What is the state of Bollywood Hindi music at the moment? Like, how do you look at it?
How do I look at it right now? So Bollywood Hindi music since 2018, and I think there's a watershed moment there, right? Since we let Badshah, Tanishq Bagchi, all the cuckards, I don't know how many there are anymore, and we let the auto-tune industry in, I think we've gotten to a point where it's turned into, there'll be one song that sells the album and sells the movie, and everything else is trash. And so musically, I think technically Bollywood's gotten better. I don't do Tollywood and Collywood, so I'm not going to speak to them, right? I think Anirudh Ravichandran is fantastic. Ravichandran is fantastic. But from Bollywood Hindi music perspective, I think technically we've gotten better. Musically, we've gotten worse. Does that make sense?
What do you think, Sujay?
Gone are the days of the composer. I think, I still get excited when a Pritham album drops or an AR album drops, but I think there was some sort of a promise to be had from Amit Trivedi and Sneha Khanwalkar, but I haven't seen or heard their work in a very, very long time. I don't know what the hell is happening. And the more, I think the last album that really excited me in a way, a whole album which had like all the tracks working for me, was probably Laila Majnu. And probably after that, it's been like what Paresh said, like there will be one album and one song in the entire album which works, and the rest is pretty mediocre. I don't know why is that. And the whole T-Series model of, churning out remixes or churning out content rather than musical pieces has completely destroyed this entire ecosystem. And everybody's trying to ape that, from Yash Raj to Tips to Venus and everybody else, because they also want that pie of, YouTube revenue. That's the direction it's headed, and I don't like it.
So, Paresh, another technical question, because I'm genuinely interested, and I'm happy that we can chat about this. being that remixes were the bread and butter of Curry Smugglers, right?
Yeah.
What is the difference between the remixes that you like and a remix by Tanishq Bhakshi or T-Series or whatever else is out there? Like at the moment, people say, oh, it's all remix and remixes, right? And they're terrible. We're tired of them. So why is that remix bad and why is your remix good?
Okay, so here's the thing. I think let's step back for a second. Let's talk about Sakhya 2.0, Tama Tama Loge, Mukabla, like everything that we've heard, right? We've heard these songs before and they're back again. They're retreads. They go back to the original artist, or they go back to the original tapes, right? And the old school recordings, and they retread them into production. To Sujoy's point, it's not composing anymore, it's production. I can make a song at my desk if I wanted to, right? The remixes that the DJ Daves, DJ NYK, these guys, when they were producing stuff, they of course were taking the acapellas and ripping the songs off, but then they'd walk away and say, okay, so Swedish House Mafia used this one sample in this one song, and I want to figure out what that sample came from and what the machine was, and let me go find the machine. And now let me see if I can pitch up and down, play with the actual construction of the track. There's a bunch of tracks that I've been playing for a couple of years on the Smugglers, the pandemic era of Smugglers, that I've been retreading because of the fact because of the fact that I just love the production values. They take a song, they blow it apart, they put it back together again, and it's a brand new version. Right? It's like to make the Marvel reference. It's like taking Jarvis and creating Ultron, but Ultron isn't a homicidal maniac. You know, it's a beautiful piece of work, and so it's the same song, but there's a different beat to it. There's a different BPM to it. Like songs work in different beats per minute. There's a different BPM to it. There's a different break. There's a drop off of percussion that you didn't expect. Like there's just stuff going on that is. But when you hear it and it's in layers, you kind of go back. Like I fixate on like 20 seconds of a song, and I go back and go, okay, that's inspired. Like that shouldn't be there, and it is, and it works. Whereas with like the Humma remix that came out, right? Yeah. And it's like, why would you do this to it? Like the Ghana was great. Uski maa ban kar di. Like why?
Yeah, to the point that A.R. Rahman has to make a statement about that the remix is bad. You know? like don't do this. Don't do this, Rahman.
If you have the cojones and the gumption to go touch a Rahman song, you better come. Yeah. You better come clean. You know, but I have opinions about that too. But this is not the podcast for the show. We are talking about something else.
Yes, we are. But
quickly, I would like to say that there are 5 remixes that I've chosen for a Patreon special episode of 5 remixes that I really like from the 90s. So you should check out our Patreon feed at patreon.com/Khandaan podcast for that mixtape to drop soon.
And
that's a shameless plug. What a shameless plug, but I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, you gotta be shameless to be in this industry, Paresh.
Yeah. It's the secret of Khandaan's success is being totally shameless. And to add to that, everybody that listens to Sujoy's mixtapes on Patreon always sends me lovely notes that I keep to myself. I never share with Sujoy because I think Sujoy works on validation, so I give him like drip feed it sometimes.
Wow, the ultimate millennial problem.
Yeah,
it's like the carrot stick kind of situation, right? Let's get into. Paresh, where can people find episodes of Curry Smugglers?
So currysmugglers.com is relaunching. When this episode drops, Curry Smugglers will be relaunching at the .com level in around the 25th of November. I'm rebuilding the website, but we're on iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Mixcloud, because SoundCloud has ruined the experience. Anywhere there's a podcast, look for the Curry Smugglers. Look for Curry Smugglers, and it'll pop up. And there's a restaurant out in Australia that stole my name, but whatever. They're allowed to have it, you know. But it's the one with the really funky logo and the tabla, and that's us. And so please subscribe, please. Yeah. Music is life.
Smuggled your curry.
They did. I'm not mad at them. We had a conversation over Twitter DM. I'm not mad at them. That's great.
Okay.
I'll add a link to the show notes too, so people can check it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
But Paresh, you did not just come to talk about Curry Smugglers. You also picked a movie, right?
I did. And the list you sent me was overwhelming and long, and I didn't realize that the Khans, the three that we talk about on the show, had such a big portfolio. So when I looked at them, I'm like, I've not seen like 80% of what are these movies? These movies came out like I didn't even remember, right? So and then I realized there was the 90s and the early 2000s, and those were a blur. So I was like, okay, I'm looking at these and I'm like, you guys haven't hit like the big heavy hitters. You guys were doing the obscure references, and I understand why, because that's the bread and butter for the show. But I'm not the target demographic. Sujoy and Asim, you both know Bollywood for me is like, I can tell you, I watched Lutere in the theaters with Samiksha Sinha and Ranveer Singh.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next movie I watched after Lutere was Sultan in the theaters. And the next movie after that I watched is maybe going to be Ram Setu. I will suffer through Ram Setu because I love the two of you.
You were actually planning to watch Ram Setu. Me and Farish were trying to coordinate, but then schedules didn't work out because we were thinking this movie is going to be so bad we can at least have 30 minutes of contents just making fun of it. So, but
and at the time of this recording, Ram Setu is playing in theaters, but I could not be brave enough to go in on my own.
Yeah.
So you can tell how few movies I watch in the theaters. I'm not a big Bollywood movie watcher, if that makes sense.
Sujoy, any intention of going to Ram Setu? Did you consider it?
No. I don't
Sujoy,
think.
Don't worry, I'll take one for the team. Tu chinta mat karna, main hu na.
Send us a voice note of your thoughts. We can play it on the next episode or something.
Actually, So we're taping this on a Friday morning. I'm thinking of taking my brother and making him suffer through it on a Saturday. If I go, I will send you a voice note for sure.
Sounds good. So let's get into our main review, which is Three Idiots.
Yep.
For the people that don't know Three Idiots, I mean, who doesn't know Three Idiots though? Like, I'm trying to even struggle how to kind of like.
I think they're new Bollywood people, right? They're people who are discovering Bollywood through word of mouth. I think they haven't watched Three Idiots. It's fair to say there's a good chunk of people who are walking into Bollywood going, I don't know about this movie.
Yeah. So the IMDb summary is two friends are searching for their long lost companion. They revisit their college days and recall the memories of their friends who inspired them to think differently, even as the rest of the world called them idiots. It's directed by Raju Hirani. It stars Aamir Khan, Madhavan, Kareena Kapoor, Sharman Joshi, Boman Irani, and it is a massive hit. I was just looking at the numbers. So this came out in 2009, and clear winner, it made 460 crores. The second on the rank is Love Ajkal, which made 130 crores. So the gap between number one and number two is like
3x.
Three other movies, basically. That's crazy. And I'm not sure if Wikipedia is counting the money from China or if this is just local Bollywood money. I'm assuming it is. It's pretty much one of the highest grossing Indian movies of all time. It's available on Netflix. And what I hear is it was, for a lot of people, it was kind of the gateway to Bollywood. And for me, I'll just lay out my cards on the table. It's one of my favorite movies. Like, I really, really love this movie. But usually when we are planning to watch a movie, we send an innocuous tweet out in the world, which Sujoy happened to do this episode, right, Sujoy?
Yeah, I did. So
Sujoy, how was that experience? So is your ass still on fire?
No, my relationship with Twitter has completely changed over the years. It's now like I lit the fire. You know, Sutli bomb. You lit the fire and you run away. It's kind of like that. I just quit Twitter for a few days and then come back to see, people have exploded on the timeline.
Yeah.
So I basically tweeted saying, we'll be discussing Three Idiots on the next episode, and this is such a big movie, a momentous movie in the whole time scale of Bollywood cinema that has been out in the last decade or so. And I just wanted to know people what they thought about when they watched it. Do they have any nostalgia, related to it? And has it changed with rewatches? And do people actively like it, dislike it, hate it with a passion or not? And especially I wanted because, from the engineers, because I'm an engineer, I'm a Desi engineer. I grew up in that particular environment of competition and, entrance examinations and going to an Indian engineering school and studying undergrad there. And I know these characters like personally. These came alive from the pages of Chetan Bhagat, and he wrote this as a sort of a biographical story of his days in IIT. And it's all of these characters are true, to me, and I could relate to them. So I wanted to know what people felt of it. But there was a lot of negative reaction, I would say, from the Twitter replies that I got.
Yeah. Basically, like you tweeted that, and then Paresh messaged me. Basically, like his words were that sweat emoji, in Key and Peele, that sketch where they found his browser history and the guy is just sweating. I was like, wait, is this movie way more divisive than we thought it was, right? I wanna read some. I wanna pull up some of the comments I got.
Yeah, I was going to say, pull up some of the comments, and I have a response to a couple of them. So yeah, pull up the comments, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, so this was from Meera, a long-time listener. No, I actively detest this movie, and I'm sure I am the audience for it. Engineer, middle class, part of the race, everything. This and PK manipulative. Then Asim Chabra, friend of the show, noted film critic, hated it. Absolutely ridiculous situation, awful acting, caricatures, especially that idiotic character played by Omi Vedya. Then Vedya? Okay.
Yeah, Vedya.
Asim, I apologize. Right? He's not wrong, but I will pivot the lens and say, if Omi Vedya pissed you off, I think he did his job in the movie.
Yeah.
And of course, he's a film critic. He watches more movies than I do. But I can tell you that I grew up in Dubai around those exact human beings. And even now, 35 years removed, or 25, whatever time removed from high school, I'm like, if I see that guy again, usko chamat marne ka dil karta hai.
So actually, Uday said he can't stand it, but this reply was from Vinay Aravind, which was much more complete. Which he says, it was unbearable. Raju Hirani's Munna Bhai worked because his comic chops took center stage. Then the sequel where the preaching started to eclipse the comic chops. And then this film where it was all preaching and maybe 5 minutes of fun. And I have to say, I was taken aback by the comments. And what happened then is, like, I went back and read the original reviews of 2009 when this movie came out. Mm-hmm. And I think the most read one is, again, friend of the show. We have so many friends like that are so well renowned writers now. It's amazing. Raja Sen wrote a quite scathing review of Three Idiots. So even at that time when the movie came out, critics weren't on board with this movie.
Yeah.
And it just became such a mammoth success that, you can't even discuss. You can't even say anything about it, I feel. And I think that's why when you kind of open the door for people to vent their frustration about this movie, I think that's where all of the tweets came from then.
So I have a theory regarding that. So
tell me your theories. Your theory, then Paresh's theory.
Sure. So this is written by an engineer who went on to become an MBA, started working at a bank, and he wrote his biography. This is a story of engineers, pretty much, of how much pressure people go through to get these seats and the life that goes beyond. And obviously the philosophy behind whether you should, run after excellence or just run after a career, make money, and should that be the aim of life? That's the whole philosophy, right? So there is that divide between the philosophy of life from the perspective of somebody who from a lower middle class background in India who wants to just make it, to be able to rise above that social status, and be people who pursued humanities and arts degrees and who have a much more nuanced take on life. I think that's where the difference of how they see, because this is going to relate to pretty much every single year. I don't know the exact statistics, but pretty much like 10 million kids sit for the Indian entrance examination for engineering. And it's pretty much like 1 in 100 gets a seat in one of the esteemed colleges. And apart from that, everybody else goes to the B or C class colleges. So the pressure that goes through all these students, this is like for every single one of those engineering graduates, they have lived this life of pressure of not just getting into the entrance and passing through that and then getting into the door. And then you find that there is a whole another new world to explore where you have to go through so much more of the grind to get into, the next level of life. So I think from relatability standpoint, there will be a whole section of people, especially the engineers, who related to this, and those were the ones who still look at this with a lot of relatability, and then there are people who look at this with the lens of, oh, these are just very caricaturish situations which are not realistic at all. So, it's preachy, it's caricaturish, or, the dean cannot or would not talk like this, or the teachers won't be talking like this. These situations are very filmy. But also, like, as one of the tweets also pointed out, that Raju Hirani is that kind of a director. He has been famously, he himself has said he's been inspired by directors like Hrishikesh Mukherjee, who sort of translate life-like situations in a cinematic way, or like in a play, and that's where his sort of cinema is as well. But I think Three Idiots, PK, even Lagera Munnabai also show that his sort of lens of showing scenes and stories is through that lifelike situations, but in a caricaturish way.
So the novel you were mentioning is Chetan Bhagat's 5 Point Someone. So
Yes.
just to mention that. That's a good theory. I will add to it in a minute. Paresh, what was your theory about the backlash we got to the tweet?
So I'm about to do a dunk here. This is Sujay, that headline you were talking about. This is about to happen. I feel like the people who responded to those tweets have their opinions and they're entitled, and I absolutely agree to the fact that they're allowed their opinion. But I also feel like the people who hated this movie are the Venn diagram of people who hate this movie is not an intersection; it's a straight overlay of people who love Shahrukh Khan movies.
Okay, I did not see that. That's where you were going with this one. Okay,
Right? And here's why. Everything Sujoy said, absolutely agree with. I think the fact that people dislike this movie are the people who also were exposed to Bollywood by going, oh, Shah Rukh Khan, arms open, smug ass face, most slappable face in the industry, right? And then we have this movie, right? It's a direct dichotomy of what happens. Well, the one thing that people didn't see, and this is what flummoxed me when I was messaging you. I'm like, this movie has heart. It's absolutely filmy, but this movie has something different that someone else would not have the balls to attempt. There are flaws. Don't get me wrong. We'll get there. We're absolutely going to get to the flaws, right? But I looked at it and going, for me, this movie relates to pivoting the lens from what Sujoy said. Sujoy went through the entrance exam side of things. I'm going from the fact that I have friends like this. I have a friend like that I have known since I was 4 years old. I'm 43 at the time of recording this. I've known this guy for 38, 39 years, right? I'm over here like, yeah, no, I know somebody like that. This movie relates to me on a personal level, right? So when I see backlash like, oh, I couldn't stand it, I almost walked out. And again, people are allowed their opinions. I'm like, yeah, but you sat through a Shah Rukh Khan movie. You sat through Rais. You sat through Phir Bhi Dil Hindustani. You sat through Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, which is one of the most disgusting scripts ever.
कुछ कुछ होता है के ऊपर कुछ नहीं बोलने का.
You know what I mean? Like, but again, if you take it on paper, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai is the most improbable love story in life, right? Especially when the 7-year-old Anjali is like, man, I'm going to play Cupid. Really, that's believable. But three guys going through entrance exams, suicides, dealing with personal pressures, feels too filmy. Jabe.
Do you know that sketch from the Dave Chappelle show where Rick James comes into the house with muddy boots on the white couch and he's like, your couch?
Pretty much. But to drive my point home, and yes, I had to make the Shah Rukh Khan reference. I what I'm trying to explain here is the fact that yes, this movie, and thank you for saying the Hrishikesh Mukherjee inspired piece of it, because I think that people forget that Raju Hirani is a bridge filmmaker. He's not one of the new filmmakers that came out in the last 10 years. He was someone who was doing assistant work and in the industry under Hrishikesh Mukherjee, adjacent to Subhash Ghai, adjacent to all those people who made the Amitabhs of the world, made the Sunny Deols of the world, made the Jackies of the world. So we remember those movies in the early, mid, late 80s and early 90s, if you want to push that boundary, right? So when you work in the industry there, your work is influenced there. And therefore, you're also now carrying forward the filmy cinematic piece that Sujoy talks about, but you're also in a situation in India where culturally the country is changing. And so how do you bring your art into social commentary? Right? And so when you look at the movie from that perspective, I feel like, again, I don't mean to alienate your audience. I know that I'm a guest here, but again, I'm not the target demographic for Bollywood, right? So I feel like I can have a little bit from an impartial view. If your listeners and your viewers and the friends of the show are predominantly Caucasian and not from India, this movie won't relate at all. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think I had two points kind of I wanted to add, and it's kind of piggybacking on both of these points, is this idea of the collective versus the individual.
Correct.
And like, I remember back in the day, in college or something, I read The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and movie really struck a chord with me. Like, it really struck, like it shaped me how I was at that time. And much later, when I started reading American think pieces about it, it's like how badly this book has been seen. Like, it's ultra capitalist, it's ultra egoistic. But coming from a society that's very much towards the collective, where the individual almost gets erased, that approach of being more ego driven made sense to me, that I have to detach myself from the collective to be my own self. And at that time I needed to hear it, and I think that's also what Sujoy was kind of saying, that in terms of engineering students and the people that have become critics or filmmakers or script writers, they have taken that individual track. They have made that choice of, I don't want any of that collective bullshit. I don't want to be with the masses. I want to do my own thing. And that takes a certain type of bravery, a certain type of thinking, and it also develops your taste. Whereas I don't think Rajkumar Hirani is speaking necessarily to those people. If you enjoy his movies, great. But he is speaking to the people that are still stuck within that mass, that are still part of the rat race, that are, pressurized for whatever reasons, be it the pressures that Raju is feeling, or the pressures that Farhan is feeling, or the pressures that Pia is feeling. And that is a big collective of people. I saw Black Adam this week, and I was recommending it to my friend because I knew he likes the Rock movies. And his reply to me was, it's made a ton of money, so it has to be good somewhere. And I was like, my initial reaction was, what kind of nonsense is this to think about it? But I was also speaking with Three Idiots. I was going to review Three Idiots. So I had both of those things together in my mind. Like, I balk at movies like Bhool Bhulaiya or Black Adam or, Rohit Shetty movies, because I can't take that kind of cinema. Whereas Rajkumar Hirani just hits me in my heart. Like, I was crying at moments while I was watching this movie. And I've watched this so many times, and I get that it's overly emotional. It's manipulative in terms of a lot of things, but it just works for me. And I just still do not see too many. No. I was going to say I don't see false notes in the movies. I do see the false notes in the movie.
I mean, there's flaws everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
It is.
There's flaws everywhere. I mean, and I look at this movie, and again, for me, because Sujoy, to your point, I went through the Indian education system, but I did not relate to the entrance piece of it because I was the commerce guy, not the science guy, right? But what related to me was the fact that when it came to the three guys, just the moments of the three guys, there's a genuine camaraderie and a genuine friendship there. Like, not talking about the actors. The actors did the job well enough for the characters, but the characters have a genuine camaraderie and a genuine friendship. It isn't the super emotional moments in the hospital or the super emotional moments, in the hallways. It's that drunken evening conversation. Yeah. When they're sitting on the steps by the water tank, not up at the top, but at the bottom. Like, oh, you have to go tell Pia that you love her. Chal, let's go. Like, that those small moments in the movie work for me more, right? Whereas the set pieces, again, I guess let's do this.
There's also a disclaimer to be had that it's three of us, three dudes talking about the story about three dudes.
And I'm about to say this, and before we go to the top of the movie and work our way down, and I know we're going to be super efficient about that, I also want to point out that there is a strong possibility, my observation, I'm not speaking for Asim and Sujoy here again, I'm the guest here, so I feel like I have the soapbox a little bit. Male friendships are completely unfathomable to female viewers. I'm going to absolutely leave it at that. right?
What a broad sweeping statement.
It is absolutely unfathomable, right? And I say that because we could go 20 years not talking, and the first thing I would say, kya bencho kya kar raha hai? That would be the first thing I'd say. I wouldn't ask you how you're doing. It would literally be a cuss word and a roast, right? And I think it's completely unfathomable, which again, you add the layer of, like, there are male friendships that are unfathomable, and then you take the linguistic barrier, and you take the fact that you may not be an Indian person watching this movie, and you may not be someone who's from this part of life. You're 4 layers deep, and it's hard to relate. So let's get to the top of the movie. And Asim, you can guide us through this, and then I have copious notes.
Yeah. I wanted to talk initially about Hirani as a filmmaker first. He, like you mentioned, he's been working for a long time behind the scenes, but when he started, like, becoming, and it's mostly the collaboration with writer Abhishek Joshi and producer Vidhu Vinod Chopra, he's never hit he's never missed, basically, right? Like, it's been like massive hit after one after the other. I think even like maybe the first Munna Bhai, people weren't exactly sure, or he wasn't exactly sure what kind of movie he wanted to make. But from the second one on, he's pretty much had like a golden streak at the box office. But there are certain elements to his filmmaking, and I want to kind of break them down a little bit. So his appeal, he's very broad in terms of the appeal to the audience, but also in his comedic sensibilities. And then he also wants to match it with a lot of like heartfelt emotion. And the third thing that I also noticed is it's very dude centric. It's very like bro based, right? Almost to the point where the females are not even supporting characters, right? It's almost like Christopher Nolan type of filmmaking with women, or, you know, like Tim Burton with minorities. It's only white people in Tim Burton movies, you know, that kind of thing.
And he made a controversial statement. Okay, I see how it is.
So, and I think I think a lot of people have problem with that mix, that swing of going from very broad comedy to emotions. And I think the problem in Three Idiots is maybe centered around the Boman Irani character, because those two swings are kind of summarized the most in his principal virus character, because he's a threat to these students, right? And I mean, we have to also think like these actors are very old and they're established, but technically in college, you're like a 19-year-old fresh out of school who cannot stand up to anybody, right? So he's a threat to their career, but he's also like a cross-eyed buffoon. And the moments where he needs to be an emotional father, or he needs to be like, you know, have kind of that big climactic pen sequence where he's handing over the pen to Aamir Khan, he's also being cross-eyed at that moment. Like, he gets the suicide letter and he faints, but he faints cross-eyed. And it's like, what tone is the movie then trying to strike there, you know? And I think that is what, if you're not on board with what the movie is, what kind of rhythm it's taking, there's too many stumbling blocks. So I'm much more gracious to the people that are saying that they didn't like this movie or it didn't work for them, because I see what would not work. And it is those swings between emotion and broad comedy. What do you think, Sujoy?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Like, his sort of like by broad, I would also like to add the word holistic. So he sees the broader picture first, and then he zooms into the individual bits. I think that's what his view is. So I think he first commits to the character of, say, Virus. He writes the character to be like this, and then he will have to commit. He has to be cross-eyed even when he's emotional. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing that comes to my mind is when especially when he's doing comedy, he has to somehow bring some sort of a sexual element into his comedies. Like, if you infamously remember from PK, there was the dancing car bit, right? When PK is exploring being a human and he's running through the village, he gets to the car where people are having sex, and he stole the clothes. So that's a bit. And that's his way to, I think, in a way, titillate the audience by saying, I can include this within my movie, even though it's supposedly going to be a family comedy. That's the sort of sensibility I think Rajkumar Hirani's movies have.
Also, that rape is a punchline, basically. I remembered the Chatur speech really well, but I didn't remember that like 3-4 times later on in the movie, it's again used, "Main tera balatkar kar dunga, ye uska balatkar kar dega." And that is tough to listen to in 2022. Like, we were laughing in 2009, a lot of us, not everybody, but in 2022, it is a tough. Like, I actually watched this with my daughter, this movie, and I just forwarded the Chatur speech totally, which I think a lot of the audience would find probably the highlight of this movie, right? Like, this is the big laugh out moment, and I just had to skip the whole thing. Because I can't watch that with my daughter. I'm not ready to have this conversation with her. And I also have to mention, and I think it's just fair, that in 2019, Raju Hirani did get accused of sexual assault by one of his assistants. Like most of the Me Too movements against any of these big men in India, it came about to nothing. There's no resolution to that accusation. Maybe there was not enough proof, or maybe the proof was not heard. It could go either way. But I did want to mention that because we are talking about, rape as a punchline and making it a very bro-centric comedy. Paresh, what were you think? What were you thinking?
What's the question?
There's no question. I was just thinking about the swing between emotions and,
So the virus character, if you take away the trying to cross that emotional bridge, like you can see that with his daughters, he's kind of trying, but he doesn't know how kind of situation, right? That was my headmaster in high school. So my immediate vitriol hate bubbled up right away, right? And every time I watch this movie, I think back to the headmaster I had in high school and the amount of violence I want to inflict on that man, right? but the one thing that they didn't show, which Sujoy will corroborate, is that these people who run these institutions would also resort to violence and smack you around because you deserved it, right? And that would happen. And so I actually feel like Raju Hirani backed away from that, and the character, the acting choices Baman Hirani makes for this character are puzzling, right? Because it's like, whoa, do you need to be cross-eyed? You can just be a emotionally stunted scientist educator, right? That could have been just fine. But you're also looking at this as a baseline comedy movie, so you have to have that one fatal flaw, right? He's got these idiosyncrasies that have to be exaggerated. And as we meander through that conversation, with the rape as a punchline joke, right? I'm always reminded by George Carlin's stand-up bit where he goes, anything can be funny, rape can be funny. And I'm saying that because Carlin said that. He goes, it isn't about the punchline, it's where the exaggeration is, right? And I think Raju Hirani leans into that. It's the exaggeration. That it wasn't, again, a different lens, right, guys? I look at this and go, yeah, I get it. In and of itself, you put it in a box, rape as a punchline, absolutely disgusting. Rape as a punchline being used as a vehicle to drive home the message that this is a person who does not belong in this institution, whose rote learning mechanisms are going to do nothing for them and actually feeds into the movie's message, absolutely okay as a vehicle. Right? And so I'm able to disconnect that. And of course, the conversation in 2019 to now is difficult, 100%. Like you said, I wouldn't watch this with anybody's kids. It's not something that I would want to have that conversation about. But I'm also able to disconnect my discomfort of the content being spoken about to go, yeah, I see what he's trying to do.
It's just an interesting thing because I think all of this, like especially Three Idiots, came out before there was any Me Too movement, like on that global scale or cancellations or anything like that.
Agreed.
And now that it just happened, like it passed just before, right? Like before all of this happened and these discussions were happening on the scale. And it's also just the idea that, we have to deal with these kind of comedies, with these kind of bits, with these people that have made these jokes, and how do we deal with them now? I definitely do not find it as funny as I found it in 2009. I remember it really well. I can tell you
that I didn't find it funny then either. I didn't find it funny. I found, again, like I said, I found the situation funny. I didn't find the speech funny.
Yeah. I mean, the joke is on like the Chatur character not knowing, like the whole idea is that he just like, memorizes and wrote and then just regurgitates. So that is the joke. But yes, I can also understand that hearing the word rape 30 times in a speech is just not fun for a lot of people. So I can kind of see both sides to it. And I know this time it didn't work for me. And I also didn't remember that it's used so many times afterwards in the movie too. So the movie is also basically 3 tracks, right? So let's break down each of the 3 tracks and then see what you think about it. So the first one is the character of Sharman, Raju's character, right? How did that play? Like watching that part, his storyline, Paresh, how did that work for you, the whole Sharman track?
Relatable. Sharman Joshi's character is 80% of my high school graduating class. Guys, I apologize to your listeners. I keep wanting to say viewers, but I keep forgetting you're not a video podcast. One day you will be. But 80% of my graduating class from high school were Sharman Joshi's character. I'm not talking about the character being just encapsulated in the college. Like, they came from poor/middle class families. They were the family's way out of poverty or being lower middle class to drag them up to the middle class. They were going to be the sole breadwinner at some point in time because dad was getting old. And so I saw that, and that the amount of pressure that at 15, 16, 17 were like, dude, I got to do this well. I got to go well. You see that. And then the rings, the necklaces, the incessant going to the temple, like that's a thing. These human beings exist. Sharman Joshi plays the straight card so well. The straight man laced character in this movie so well that by the time we got to that climactic interview sequence later in the movie, you saw what was coming and you were happy that it went that way because I'm not saying you, me, I hope that the people I grew up with found that. And so I relate to that in that aspect, if that makes sense.
And you also sometimes work in education too, right?
I mean, I do teach on the side, yeah.
Yeah. So do you see Sharmans in, like, you don't, I mean, we don't have to go into details too much or something like that.
Oh, no. I can tell you right now, I'm currently teaching. I've been teaching since 2015, and I'm currently teaching now as we're taping this, in fact, last night. And I can tell you that I have a class of 21, and there's 4 of them in there right now. And they've left their home countries of India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and they're in the US, and I see it.
You have 4 Sharmans in your class.
I have 4 Sharmans in my class.
Right.
Rajus.
I have 4 Rajus in my class. Yes. Thanks, Sujay. Yes.
Sujoy, were you close to being a Raju?
Not for the sake of my family, more to my personal interests, I would say. Like, I needed to get out of my small town. So engineering was my hope, in that way. Engineering was the way to the next step, and I did not know anything better. So I was like kind of myopic in that way, and I see that like it was a means to an end to the next step, and I saw it that way. I don't think I necessarily took as much pressure because like I had the most chill professors. I don't think I had the best teachers in my academic career ever. So I don't have many stories about, inspiring tales from my college days.
No my captains for you.
Nothing, no Robin Williamses, So I didn't necessarily give in to the pressure. I should have probably studied more, but I do know like Sharmans from my days and like Raju's from my days in college, people who were under so much stress to make it, people who had so much depending on them to be, successful.
This track worked the least for me, to be honest. I did like the fact that he explicitly tells the other guys that engineering is his passion, because I didn't see that. And I think that's what Aamir's character also doesn't see in him, that, okay, if this is your love, if this is your passion, you've not shown it. The only thing you've shown is fear. And I think that is really well encapsulated. The problem I had was I really liked the middle portion of his story arc. I didn't like the ending of it. This whole idea of this fictional corporate environment that will save you and see your value, that felt very false.
Even when the movie came out in 2009, I was in the theater. I was like, "Backbencher."
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like the bank is going to save you. Like that's your savior. So that felt false. But I do understand that in the arc of the character, it kind of makes sense. But at that moment, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, oh, they still want him to sign this paperwork that he'll change his attitude. And he's like, "Main attitude rakh leta hu, aap company." And it's like, what is this? Like that, like at that point, I was like, okay, I'm out of this.
I mean, it is the same movie where they tell the story of his parents' his background in a black and white montage. So what else can you expect, right?
Which for me, hands down, one of the best parts of the movie. Every time they flip to black and white, I'm like, yeah, this is fantastic.
So funny. It's so funny. Those portions are funny. And I think even the sequence where Aamir takes his paralyzed dad on the scooter, right? That is one of those balances between broad and gross that I could still laugh with because it was just so absurd.
But also, like Sharman, at some point, when he is in the hospital, he's being told that lie that your dad is now riding the scooter, and he picturizes that.
That was funny. Yeah. That was funny. But also just like him waking up himself and seeing his friends are there, and him, when his dad wakes up and realizing that his friends saved his dad, those moments really worked well for him.
Yeah.
I thought in all of those sequences, and then just the ending of it just became a bit too absurd to me, which on the flip side is then Madhavan's character, Farhan, who's the only Muslim in this movie, by the way, which is completely inconsequential.
Shocking.
But here, it's kind of the flip side for me. Only the ending of this character works for me, with his dad. But all of the rest, he's just like a non-existent character. Like, what does he add necessarily as a third friend?
He doesn't add much to the movie as a third friend. He's the audience proxy, right?
I mean, he's the narrator also.
He's the narrator, so he's the audience proxy, which is what we want. Like in a movie that's doing time jumps and flashbacks, you need a grounding character, and he's a grounding character. I looked at Farhan's character as like, okay, this is my hand holding through the movie.
I think like Farhan is in the movie just for that one line when he says "Abba nahi manenge," and like he breaks down. That was Madhavan brought in that scene, man, completely.
No, and I think 100%. I know we're jumping back and forth with the start of the movie to the end, but I think that Madhavan's character in Farhan, the fact that he maintained his composure, showed the fear, absolutely was in the moment of this is a difficult thing that I'm going through. But the fact that he maintained his composure up until the time it mattered is also something I relate to.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Sujoy. He brought it. Like the 40 seconds of him going from, oh my God, my life is about to change, to, oh my God, I just shit my pants is magnificent. I think he's a great actor. He just is.
Yeah. And his dad, played by Parakshit Sani, I think he does a great job too. Like, I think that scene works because both actors are doing a really, like, he moves from, like being very against, he even doesn't want to hear it. He's like the typical dad, like, log kya kahenge, Sharma ji kya kahenge, Kapoor ke, all of that, to, bring back the computer. And even at that point, you don't know where he's going, right? And then he just asks him, like, tumhara professional. I broke down, man. Like, I think like, and I think, Paresh, this is to your point where you were saying, bro friendships can maybe not be understood. I think also something about sons and fathers is something that
and again, relatable to me. Yes, you broke down. My dad, you guys know the whole thing was smugglers at the top of the conversation, right? My dad, for the longest time, like, you have a job in IT, you're doing well. What the is all of this DJ shit you're doing? Right? And he's 84 years old, and even today he's like, Paresh, why are you working on this on Sunday? Do you get paid for this? I love doing this. And I'm talking about this. This is a summer conversation. Like, what are you doing this noise on Sunday for? Like, I love doing this. And he's taken him the lifetime of smugglers, 13 years and counting, to go, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to like it. He just has to get it.
Yeah.
So I broke down in that scene too.
Yeah. It worked really, really well, that one. So, Joy, you actually, coming from an engineering background, you actually did pivot a little bit to photography, right? So, did the Farhan one work better for you than the Raju one?
Not necessarily, because I do still think of myself as a technical guy more than a creative guy. In that sense, I don't necessarily relate more towards Farhan or Raju. I don't know. I'm somewhere in between, I suppose. But I think what you also said about what Madhavan's character brings to the story is that he is there because he does not belong there. He's going through that self-awareness journey of how he landed there, and he's just floating. He's letting the flow take him, and I think that's what the whole point is.
Yeah, that makes sense. The
other thing that I was thinking, and yeah, such a good point. Like, he was just there, and I'm trying to think to myself, going, what else did his character serve for? Because his character, essentially, if you take him away from the college setting and into the present day where they're doing the search for Rancho, he's a criminal, absolute criminal.
Yeah,
like that first sequence in Air India. What?
Yeah.
Bhaiya, that I don't know about India, but in the US, that's jail time, and you can't fly on a plane ever again. Period.
Yeah.
Right? And this guy's a wildlife photographer who's like world famous. What now? Suddenly he has to get chartered planes out of the country. But then I also say, oh, it's Air India. Like this shit happens all the time. So whatever.
And then he also ties up Chatur in the back of his car.
So kidnapping, grand larceny. He steals a vehicle. Absolutely a terroristic threat to an airline. Right? Destroys a wedding. What's next? What else did he do?
Exam cheating. He
Exam
breaks
cheating.
into, and then he pees on the door. So that's also like
he steals somebody else's limo / private car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Farhan. Now, suddenly, I don't like Farhan. He's a very bad influence.
These photographers, I tell you.
I tell you, sale artist log.
And then the third track is obviously Rancho, Aamir's character, who's basically the disruptor, right? He disrupts Chatur's vibe, he disrupts Virus, he Chatur's Pia. The track sheet I kind of laid out to marry this idiot. And I think the movie is very, very Aamir heavy, like most Aamir Khan movies are, and probably the reason why Amrita is happy that she's not on this podcast.
I think I level Amrita's hate for Aamir to my hate for Shahrukh. Maybe more. She maybe hates Aamir more.
I think so many of the people were like, Amrita needs to talk about this movie. She will speak for us, and unfortunately, she's not here. But what did you think of Aamir here? And we also have to talk a little bit about the age, right? Like that they are very, very old to be playing college students. But how did the whole Aamir track work for you, Parish?
I think again, his role was to be the disruptor. I think it's a good place to put him, right? Aamir Khan played the role, in my opinion, with an earnestness that was perhaps overshot because of the age. He tried to play it too young, right? But again, the setting was, freshers, right? If the settings was more MBA level, then I would say, yeah, okay, theek hai. The energy level feels right. But it every time he would have a conversation with an educator in the movie, the character would have a conversation with an educator in the movie. I'm like, yeah, that's the smartest I would be. Like, I'm not putting myself in the shoes, but yeah, that feels like the smartestness that I would be used to and that I've known friends to do. But when he's talking about, this was the one thing that was on the Twitter comments, right? It was a little preachy, right? But again, it's a Raju Hirani movie, so let's set that baseline. But I think he overcorrected into the preachiness a little bit. I felt like Aamir Khan in this movie versus Aamir Khan in Tare Zameen Par, Aamir Khan in this movie is a disservice almost to this character. I felt like it needed to be played maybe a little back down. I think he did well. But I think it was Aamir Khan and subtlety is like Shahrukh Khan and subtlety. Hota hi nahi hai yaar. I'm sorry. This is going to keep happening. These wide open alley-oop dunks, I'm hitting Shahrukh Khan every single time.
Bichara Shahrukh. But nobody to defend him. Sujoy, how did the whole Aamir thing work for you this time?
When I started watching this movie, I thought that this will going to be, very irking me, but I found it really, really watchable just because of Amir's performance, to be honest. I thought it would be terrible, but it didn't turn out to be as terrible as I thought it would be. But also, like, when Zubi Dubi started and Amir transforms into Boman Irani, he's wearing his pants just next to his nipples, and I'm like, Amrita needs to watch this. Please make this happen. But like, yeah, all the drama scenes, as you guys correctly have said, very, very preachy. Like an 18, 19, 20-year-old won't be able to speak to the dean and say, "Ye suicide nahi murder tha," and all of that. I don't buy it. I still don't buy it. But like, Aamir did a good job.
But that's what we want, though, right? We want to be the hero. We want to be the guy that fights 30 men. Like, also, that is not possible, right? But we want somebody to be able to do what we can do, that we want to do. What I really liked about Aamir is how, beside the age part, I think there is a conversation that this movie can be made with unknowns, but it would not be the success it is with unknowns. You make a choice. And we were talking about this when we were talking about Maula Jat, that when you are making a certain kind of movie that is touching a certain kind of audience, you need a Fawad and a Mahira. Same thing here. If you want to scale the way it is, then you need an Aamir or a Shahrukh or a Sanjay Dutt or whatever, You cannot do that with an Aplu Taplu and kind of have an 18, 19-year-old. And then it would look really fake if he was standing up to Boman Irani, right? Yeah. Where a grown-ass man can do it, The thing that I also really liked in Aamir this time is that his chemistry with his friends. I think, Paresh, you were mentioning that drunk scene. I was watching the making of videos on the Vinod Chopra YouTube channel. They've uploaded tons of making of this, and they were actually drunk when they were making that scene. They got like really, really drunk.
They got lit up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, famously, they got so drunk that they kept rolling the reels and they ran out of reels. Yeah. And then Vinod Chopra and Rajkumar Hirani did not have film stock with them to film the rest of the scene. So they had to go to a neighboring film set and borrow from a Kannada movie production that was going in the next whatever neighborhood or something in the film city. So yeah, that's how they completed that scene.
Yeah. It's funny how, like, 13 years later, the dynamic would probably be the other way around, where the Kannada movie is taking reels from the Bollywood movie because they're not doing that well. But
probably. I was going to say that in that scene, you could see that there was. It felt like that was probably deep into the shoot because there was just a level of comfort there. Yeah. There's no eye contact. Did you see that whole scene? That in that whole scene, there's no eye contact at all between the three characters. They're not looking at each other. It's exactly what, again, if I'm with my guy friends here, it's like, I'm not looking at you guys. I'm just having a conversation with you because I don't need to look at you guys. I can feel the vibe.
Actually, I would say that male friendship actively don't look each other in the eye or in the face. We avoid each other usually because we're probably looking at the screen while we're having a conversation. So that's usually how it goes. So yeah, I think that comfort level, and I think he is the driver in that, right? Because Sharman's character is kind of pulling back as much as he can, and then Farhan is just kind of going along, but he's the one really making that friendship. And I think Aamir does a great job there. And the second is his chemistry with Kareena Kapoor. And I don't know if it's Aamir's, is it Aamir's chemistry or is it just Kareena is so amazing? But having just watched like Lal Singh Chadda at least 4 times already since it came out again, and now seeing this, how good are Kareena and Aamir together? And they're amazing. Like Kareena is so good for kind of a limited role. Yeah. She brings in so much.
So there are 2 things that I hate about this movie, and one of them is how limited Kareena's character is in this movie. And also, like, I have to suspend so much disbelief to think that Aamir ghosted Kareena for such a long time, and the best she could do was Suhas.
Yeah.
A doctor out of Delhi, and she has to keep, her old flame alive with Suhas and get married to him. Totally not believable at all. Yeah. But also, like, Karina is Karina in every scene, especially in the climax when everybody comes together and everybody is like so happy, and Karina is like,
I don't like Wangdu.
I don't. She went from Chanchar to Wangdu, and she's so unhappy about it.
Dejected. She's dejected by Wangdu. She was just not one of Wangdu.
And her original surname is Shastra Buddhe.
I know she's just been dealt this card of bad names, right? And I did appreciate that. There's this whole broy like cussing this guy out, like, where the hell have you been, blah blah blah. And she's like, I don't like Wangdu. I'm like, I just but she says it just in that one empty space where you hear it and you go, I burst out in the theater. I remember that. I was like, that of all the things she's worried about, I don't like Wangdu. But Karina's amazing, man. Amazing. I think that she is the one who is the magnet in this dynamic. I think Aamir as a character, but also as an actor, I think he is a foil. I was thinking about the conversation, like you guys were talking. Every time we've talked about, I've listened to your episodes where you say Aamir has chemistry with X, and I look at the movie, I'm like, no, I think the person X is more chemistry than Aamir. I think Aamir's biggest flaw for me is the fact that you're getting this guy who's almost very pika and plain. Like, as Aamir Khan's not somebody I look at and go, oh my God, I must bang. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then the women who he's paired with in these movies, especially when there's like crackling chemistry with Karina like that, it's usually the female actor who's bringing that energy. And Karina's always been good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's pre-Chameli Karina and there's post-Chameli Karina.
Yeah, for sure. And like you see, especially when you have a song like Zubi Zubi,
which I hate.
The song maybe, but she lights it up. Like every dress she's in, that orange sari on the swing,
which I forwarded through every single time.
You have no watch it. Just watch it on mute.
I mean, I've watched it once, but I was like, whatever, move on.
Yeah, that old school black and white on the thing with the, I don't know which kind of movie they reference, Raj Kapoor kind of thing. I think she looks amazing, and like it brings like the thing that the movie is missing, right? And Karina brings that, and I feel maybe it's not enough. Also, there's that sequence where they're doing that delivery of the baby, and she's talking through it with on the kind of predecessor to Skype, I guess.
Hey, it was MSN, okay? Messenger.
Yeah,
Sala?
yeah, exactly. She's great in that because she just has to act in front of a screen, but she's amazing. Like all of the range of emotion she gives, because she cannot be there. She's the one that was supposed to take care of the delivery, and now she's stuck with all of these guys with like a Hoover and no electricity. And she might lose the little baby. I thought she did an amazing job in that whole sequence.
She did. So I wrote notes last night as I was watching this movie, right? Just kind of finished it up, just handwritten notes about things I liked in that scene. I called the whole delivery arc. I have a double underline under this, and I wish I could send you a picture. So I said delivery by MacGyver, double underline, right? How did the baby survive these idiots?
And also, I was just feeling so bad for Mona Singh's character, right? Like, giving birth is kind of a very precious, intimate moment, and she's surrounded by like 50 IT students near her, sare gande mele, and like she's had to do it on a ping pong table. And even in this, like how it's shot, she's a side character to the birth, even. Like, behosh ho gayi, let's get a vacuum in her. And that's kind of a joke. And then even when the baby is born, she's the last one to hold the baby. So I was like, oh, poor bomb, like even in that term, she's almost like sidelined in it. So
yeah, but yes, and not but. Yes, and. But every time you're seeing Aamir Khan, Sharman Joshi, Madhavan in that scene, Raju Hirani did something that I thought was inspired, and it struck me only on this viewing because, again, I had to pay attention because you guys this is Khandaan, yaar, you can't come unprepared, right? And so I was watching it and I was like, wait, I never noticed this before. Every time you see Rancho, Raju, and Farhan, it's from the point of view of Mona. There's a shot that he's walking and showing the camera, but every time there's a front-on shot, it's from the ping pong table. So it's you're Mona. As the audience. So
Yeah.
she's still involved, but yes, a big disservice to her as that way.
Right. So in a way that, like, after that arc of Farhan is completed, the point of view shifts to Mona Singh just for the delivery sequence.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But the ping pong table, I again I have another note here that says, wait, ping pong table broke during all is well, but suddenly fixed and can handle weight of a woman giving birth.
Yeah,
Question mark.
I was just thinking, like, put at least a pillow under her back, man. Poor lady, you know, like what is she doing? Crunches, and Raju's just like pushing the baby out. It's not how it works, you know. And it's maybe it's also the fact that between 2009 and 2022, I've had a kid and I've been in the delivery room, so that sequence annoyed me a little bit more than it did maybe in 2009. What any standout sequences, Paresh, that really stood out for you in the movie, that you were like, oh, we haven't talked about that point I want to really kind of hit?
You know, the standout sequence for me, and again, I know this is infuriating because people are going to discuss this guy is just totally, you know, self-filating at the bro friendship here, right? And for the biggest standout sequence for me was when Raju admits he got scared and hugs Rancho after he saves his dad.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I'm not discounting female friendships, but it is a big deal for a man. I'm not saying how old or how young. It is a big deal for a man to stand there in front of his circle and go, man, I messed up and I'm sorry. And to break down at that point, because we are conditioned, Desi men are conditioned to not show that kind of weakness. Right? And it takes that long. And so every time I see that sequence, and that sequence doesn't make me like teary-eyed, it makes me proud, if that makes sense. Right? I go, yes, that is what I want to see. And again, a movie in 2009 breaching those barriers versus you fast forward to like 2022, now it's normalized. Yeah. But in 2009 and pre, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Even in terms of like mental health and, you know, a lot of these themes that the movie hits, that was before all of these conversations were happening, right?
Right. And I wrote this down here. Like, again, one day, you guys, I'll send you a text message with what I wrote down here. In the margin, I said, movie in 2009, ? Movie in 2022, absolute hallmark benchmark for mental health. Like, I bet you if this movie came out this year, it'd be like, oh yeah, fantastic. Yeah. It has its flaws, but thank you for talking about mental health. Yeah. But no, because Aamir's in it and it's preachy, we hate the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, it does talk about male friendship, which, again, I think after Dil Chahta Hai was kind of a flavor that, you know, in Bollywood we're talking about it. But I do think this has a level of maturity that we needed in 2009 with that broad comedy. And the thing is with male friendships, you know, like, we have a lot of these stereotypic images about, you know, we don't talk, we're joking about it, that, you know, we don't hug, we don't tell each other that we love each other, but we also feel unbelievably lonely, you know, like there's a point where you have your middle age like we are, and suddenly you stand still and you figure out I have no friends.
Who are you calling middle-aged? Sujoy is the oldest one here. Nonsense.
But we do feel lonely. We don't have any friends. Our friends are in another country, or they're, you know, left behind, or where we studied, or we moved, or they were in another job, and we are not able to cultivate or grow new friendships as easily. And I make this joke with my wife all the time that, you know, she can just go to the supermarket, make 3 friends, you know. I go to the same supermarket and I'll just come back with what I had to buy, you know. Like this, like it's just a different dynamic. And I think I do like that there is the sensitivity, there is the love that this movie shows. Which, you know, I think we could all use. We could all apply that, not just look at it that's a great hero moment, but something that we can learn and maybe apply to each other.
So I want to ask you, and this is something I wanted to ask the both of you, because again, it is a broy movie. But Sujoy, I'm pointing this question to you, and then you can point it to Asim. Do you feel that the unofficial bro friendship trilogy of Bollywood cinema in the last 30 years is Dil Chahta Hai, 3 Idiots, and Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara?
Yeah, I suppose so. But I think there is a difference of... I think the stark difference in that is the social dynamics. Like Dil Chahta Hai and Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, even though they are relatable in some aspects, those totally belong to the affluent
right. And I was
of India.
Yeah, the social status. I didn't think of that angle. I was talking about like there's Dil Chahta Hai. Everything comes to a head at the end, right? You go through the whole movie and the friendship breaks, and then everything comes to a head at the end.
Sure.
Three Idiots feels like it's an ongoing friendship maturing over the years, and then ZNMD is, to Asim's point, people have drifted and come back together, and I feel like again, you look at those three movies and when they came out, and it felt like the direction for male character friendships, not talking about male character friendships, pivoted every single time those movies came out. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just talking out my ass.
No, I do think it makes sense. I think it's a theme that a lot of these new age filmmakers, and I think a lot of it has to maybe do Farhan, right? Like, I think he's an actor in one, he's a creator of the other. And I think, I mean, when I was reading the original reviews of Three Idiots, like, so many mentions of Dil Chahta Hai and Farah Khan movie were mentioned within the reviews. So I think that's kind of part and parcel of how this movie was written. And I also think this has set the template for then female movies and content that has come out, like 4 More Shots or Aisha, these kind of movies that have then come that were very much
Veere Di Wedding as well.
Veere Di Wedding,
Veere Di Wedding, absolutely, yeah.
But maybe there's, I think what you were mentioning, Sujoy, it is of a certain social level, and I don't think necessarily we've seen it in different ages, in different maybe eras or different, but then on the other hand, we have seen a few of this content. Maybe we need to see it in different, more about female friendships or, intersectional friendships or male and female friendships that aren't sexually laced, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think
लड़का और लड़की कभी दोस्त नहीं बन सकते.
Right, exactly, right. And I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to the question you asked, like what else stood out? And I don't know how we're doing for time. I just want to point out that I observed 2 things that I think I want to talk about. Going back to the comment of Omi Vadia's character. Omi Vadia's character is meant to be infuriating. Right? It's meant, and if he did that, he did his job. I'm just going to leave it at that. People will disagree with me. That's okay. I know Chaturs. I grew up with Chaturs. I still have Chaturs on Facebook who message me and going, "Yeah, how are you doing? You should see the Lamborghini I'm driving in Dubai." I have those a-holes in my life, right? I have that. But then leaving the Chatur character aside for a second, the guy who played Joy Lobo in the 3 minutes of screen time that he had, I think he did fantastic.
Yeah.
But they did him a disservice where they have him playing an acoustic guitar, but suddenly there's like, he can't lip sync to save his life, and there's a chorus behind him. I mean, yeah, extra log kahan se aa gaye?
Yeah. Does he also invent a drone? Like, is he the first to invent a drone, like in 2009?
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit, that was inspired, like that quick 4-minute sequence that he was in doing the walk and talk with Boman Rai's character, is the desperation that I had when I was in high school, going, I need another week. And then that comment where Boman Rai's character was khana chhod diya tha, nahana chhod diya tha, right? And it is a straight commentary on how my educators, I won't call them teachers, my educators treated me and said, "Oh, you're useless.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit about what your life, what you're going through life is. Sujoy is in your class. Sujoy's got straight A's. Why can you not do anything?" And that hit home for me, because I was like, oh yeah, if I could go back and throw my shoes at some of the people who I grew up with who were teaching me, absolutely I would. So that kid did a good job. It was in the movie all of 4 minutes.
Yeah,
Fantastic job.
Also, like a bit of a trigger warning, because this movie has 2 suicides, one attempt and one by
3.
The brother, right?
Yeah,
brother.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
So conversation about 1 and 2 triggers, yes.
Yeah, and like to have that in the middle of All Is Well, or at the end of All Is Well, to bring that up. The first time I saw that movie, I did not know that the movie was going there, and like many years later, because when I was in engineering, one of my seniors committed suicide.
Wow.
And many years later, a friend of mine committed suicide as well. And like to have that conversation going about, the whole, you are having a bad day and your life, if you can go past through that, you have a very different direction of where your life can take you, and you have to look at that point as well, and as well as the conversation about the different of perception of mental health, and it's in the Desi elders, it's very easy for them to shrug it off. That sort of perspective was also portrayed in Paman Irani's character, and I think they did a good job with that.
Well, and if you take that statement and you transpose that over to Parikshit Sahni's character, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. The only difference is Parikshit Sahni's character as the father, Farhan, is coming from a point of survival, not from a point of excellence. Right. I put an AC in my son's room. I slept out in the warmth. I made sacrifices so that I could make my son better. But his whole demeanor and approach to life is about survival. Boman Irani's character is all about coming first, right? But both of those, at the end of the day, is get out the rat race.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought it was commentary wise. And then the ragging scene, totally meant for comedy, the ragging scene where they have to take their pants off and do all that stuff, right? Hits home again. Again, for someone who doesn't come from that culture, it doesn't make sense, but hits home.
Okay, I have to pick up on that. So because I don't come from that culture either. Like I actively have never taken part in any sorority. I would never be part of any group that would humiliate anybody in the group. So even for me, it's very tough to watch those sequences because I'm like, why would you subject yourself to it? I just don't understand. And so I think you've mentioned a few times that you went through all of that.
Yes.
Back in the day. So how does that work? Like I had real trouble with it. I still don't understand. It doesn't compute in my mind. Why would you subject yourself through ragging?
Because
you don't subject yourself, you get subjected.
Yeah. I mean, you are so when a new batch comes, it's 200 plus students, right? And then you have 3 years of seniors that are in the university or in the college before you, and because they outnumber you in a way, and they are your seniors, and they sort of, I don't know. It's just a system that you need to follow, I suppose.
So how does it not end in fistfights? Which would be what? Yeah, that's what
it does. Right? It does. And when that happens, it gets dirty. It gets really political very quickly.
Yeah.
And then police come every single year. There could be a scandal. So it's either you stay silent and still ride it out through Freshers Week, which happens in a month or so. Until then, you just have to be this.
You rat it out,
bitch.
And again, we're making light of it from a situation, right? But then there's also these stories. I haven't seen that because I haven't paid attention to it. But while I was in Dubai and while I was a freshman in college and stuff like that, when I lived here, my peers from Dubai, where I grew up, went to India. Some of them went to India, some of them went to other countries. But the ones in India, I talked to them over email. He goes, "Yeah, I got ragged." And then a friend of a friend of a friend, an acquaintance 3 times removed during Freshers Week committed suicide because he got over-ragged because he fought back, right?
Yeah.
But stuff like that happens, and I think the idea is latent, underlying. It's a negative idea, right? And the portrayal is meant to be negative in the movie. Just trying to connect it back to the movie is that we are miserable here, and so we're going to break you and make you just as miserable.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be positive. It's played off for comedic intent, right? But it's also meant to be a commentary on that. This is shitty. This is shitty behavior that people do to each other, right? It's Lord of the Flies. It's very Lord of the Flies. However, that sequence, to add some levity to the proceedings, that sequence has given me one of my favorite words that's been in my vocabulary since 2009. Mutra Visarjan. I love that line. My favorite word.
Yeah. It's a weird mob dynamic which I've never I would get beat up so badly there would not be another option for me there, it's terrible. And I think the people that have been subjected to it then also abuse other younger,
you pass the bullying on. You bully other batches 100%.
And this is that's just the whole setup of this is dynamic. This whole dynamic is terrible. I remember one of my friend always used to say, anytime more than 4 men get together, police should break it up because nothing good can happen to it. And I understand it. That's why 3 is the limit to this podcast to 3 men. And we're already bordering here on the wrong side of the track. So Joy, any other sequence we haven't covered that you want to talk about that you liked or didn't like?
Like there were flashes of, nostalgia or relatability that I could directly say, like, yeah, this scene's like a scene from my life. My life from 2001 to 2005. It feels like that. Like, especially the introductory scene with Baman Irani's character Virus. He introduces with the quail's nest and he breaks those eggs. I remember my mathematics 1 professor, first lecture in the classroom, he would say, you guys have come from colleges and, you guys are brilliant with 80-90% from all over the country and you've been selected. But I can tell you with certainty that 50% of you will fail this class. He starts that class with those positive words. And it's those golden words that I remember watching this movie.
So it's a heartless approach to education. You know, it's terrible. I'm glad I never had to go through this. I was reading, like, one of the aspects of this movie, it's a huge success in China. And I found this answer on Quora. Somebody asked, why is the movie 3 Idiots so popular in China? And somebody replied, firstly, it's a great movie in itself with its both humorous and touching plot. I remember laughing and crying at the same time when I was watching it. Secondly, many students can relate to the movie immensely as both countries have similar education systems due to the huge population. I just thought that was interesting that that this has been a huge success in China, and there's definitely reasons why that is. And it resonates with both of them. I just wanted to get like a Chinese perspective on it. So Paresh, you had a final thought to kind of like.
Well, I have a thought. I don't know if this is a final question or if we digress. So I mean, I know I've been dunking on Shahrukh Khan, but that's just who I am as a human being, right? But it's a 2-part question. First question is, could this movie have had Salman or Shahrukh? Because again, Khandaan, right? Could this movie have had Salman or Shahrukh in any of the roles and been as good, quote unquote, or successful?
So Joy, you want to go first?
I'm asking you guys. You guys are the experts. So again, I am not the target demographic.
Yeah, I think Salman and Shahrukh, if they were not to play Aamir's character individually, this would be a totally different movie. They couldn't be the supporting roles as such in 3 Idiots. So because even though the movie is called 3 Idiots, it's actually Aamir and the other 2 idiots,
Right.
It's that movie. And if Salman were to play 3 Idiots or Rancho's role, I think he would be able to do the comic scenes very well, but not sure about the...
Salman doesn't have pathos. There's no pathos.
So Salman, the ragging scene would be totally different because they take off his shirt and everybody would be blown away. Boy, kya muscles hai, boy.
It would be that scene from Munna Bhai MBBS.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. The thing I think neither Shahrukh or Salman would pick this movie. I think that's where the problem would lie. And I think that's where Aamir's talent is picking the scripts that work. And I don't think Shahrukh definitely doesn't have that talent. And Salman just does Salman. So I think Salman... I think Aamir would be like an inspirational teacher, like he was in Mohabbatein, but I don't see him being able to play like an engineering student necessarily. And Salman is just a badass, he's like Radhe from Tere Naam. He's outside of the college, So it's like also like Salman would be like, where are the girls, yaar? Like, what am I doing here?
That's true.
I think you need an Aamir to make this movie, but also like performance-wise, what you were saying earlier, you need to be kind of a cipher. You need to be kind of a nothing compared to all of the other personalities that are going around. And I think both Shahrukh and Salman have way too much personality to be able to play Rancho and also bring in the mystery of that Rancho is Funsukwan at the end, right?
Yeah, Rancho's an imposter, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think that either of those aspects would necessarily work with... not even
I do appreciate that you called it personality, and I would have called it something else, but that's okay. We'll move on.
But like taking it even further, I don't think Akshay could play this role. I don't think Ajay Devgan could play this role. It needs to be Aamir. and that's...
Is it because Aamir is as tall as an 18-year-old?
Yeah, and to be fair, he does have a baby face. If you take the crow's feet away from his eyes, the cheeks and the jaw still hold baby face lines, right?
And infamously, he sort of observed how young kids behave and how their body language is, and that's why he pretty much in all of his the college scenes when he's younger, he's hopping around. He's never stationary. He's never standing and talking unless like in an emotional scene where they are bearing joy.
And then thank you. And then the second question I have, again, being a guest on the show, has this movie aged appropriately, poorly, well?
I struggle with that question because we're kind of wrapping up, right? I think for a long time, like when non-Indian people, because I think not even Indian, Desi people and Chinese people, we've pretty much watched this movie, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If you now recommend it, it's usually to people that are coming in new to Bollywood for whatever reason. And Three Idiots is one of my top 5 recommended movies. And I was kind of revisiting that, especially after all of the criticism we received on the tweet, or not we received, the movie received.
Sujay, not us. Sujay.
Yeah. And then also just me, like, should I change my ranking? Should I not recommend this anymore? Has it aged? I do think it has aged since 2009, because it was on the cusp of a lot of discussions that we've been very vehemently having since then. But I would still recommend this movie. I still think it's a very good, funny, heartfelt movie which has its heart in the right place. And I do think it can become preachy, and it can become, like, even in terms of filmmaking, it's very vanilla, it's very bland, right? Except for Zubi Zubi, where it kind of plays with like different cinematic tropes. Otherwise it's like very like
it's shot to shot to shot to shot to shot.
Almost like a Rishikesh Mukherjee you were mentioning earlier, right? Like that, like a play almost kind of movie. So there's no flourish there. Even if you compare with his movies like Sanju later on, there's more kind of a cinematic approach to it. There's like his drug sequences, his flashbacks, and this and that. This has none of it, but I still think it's a really, really good movie.
And I think like that blandness is also necessary. Or not necessary, but is a sort of vehicle for people who are just getting introduced to Bollywood. This is a good movie to start with, so that you get acquainted with what Bollywood has to offer.
Well, and if you look at it, the melodrama that is in this movie, right? And again, I'm fast forwarding through the movie in my head as we talk about this, right? The melodrama in the movie is always in the hospital lobby or in Virus's office. It doesn't occur anywhere else. It literally does not occur anywhere else. There's no, okay, the MacGyver delivery at the end, okay, theek hai, I'll give you that. That ludicrous, cringe-worthy sequence, but okay, for the vehicle it needed to be, I'll even discount that. But true melodrama, true character-to-character melodrama happens either in the hospital lobby or it happens in Cyrus's office. It doesn't happen anywhere else. Right? And again, I think that's a masterstroke, right? It's both those locations. One is, from a student's point of view, their worst nightmare. You don't want to be in the director's office. And one is a human being. You don't want to be in the hospital because it's one of your worst nightmares.
Yeah.
Right? And so leading into those as well, I think is a masterstroke. I think it's, which is weird to say this, for what this product is and for what this movie is and what the filmography of this human being, Raju Hirani, is, it is a very restrained movie.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of, because conversely, everybody's on Twitter and going, oh my God, it's preachy. But again, compared to the other movies, it's not.
Do you think this is Raju Hirani's best movie?
Are you talking about it as a full product?
As just a personal opinion, like when you look, like all of his movies have been massively successful. This is probably the most of it, right? The most successful one. If it's not this one, maybe it's PK, because just maybe it had more theaters and stuff like that. But like for you, is this your favorite Raju Hirani movie, Paresh?
It's a 1-1A. I think that Three Idiots is the complete film, but Munna Bhai is the better film.
The first one or the second one?
The first one.
Right.
I think the first one, but I have problems with the first one, but this is not a Sanjay Dutt podcast, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah, because the second one definitely becomes like whole ass preachy in that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Three Idiots is the complete film. I think Munna Bhai is the better film, and I take that statement as you will.
Yeah. Sujoy, is this the best Hirani movie?
For me, I think yes. In a way, I don't think PK or Sanju were any better, and I don't feel as much related or like myself represented in any way in Munna Bhai. Those are mostly fictional dramas with some comedy, but Three Idiots is a bit more than a movie for me.
Yeah, and I never watched Ferrari Ke Savari, so I'm not sure I can relate to that.
He didn't direct it though.
Produced
He produced it.
Yeah. He edited it as well. But also, I would like to ask the music of the movie. We sort of, did not mention other than Zubi Dubi. Any favorites of this of this soundtrack that you still listen to or don't?
I mean, you guys, I'll tell you right now. If I'm on the motorcycle and I'm riding the motorcycle and Behti Hawa comes on, I'm glad I'm wearing a helmet. Just because I am a little crying bitch in that helmet.
Yeah,
I'll admit it. That song gets me every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. I can't think of any other songs. I think the music is forgettable otherwise.
Yeah, the movie like even like Zubi Zubi, I think the cinematography is great, but the song is quite basic. Like I don't like the soundtrack of. And honestly, like soundtrack of all of his movies haven't been that great. In a way, he's like very Rohit Shetty in that way, right? Like at least Rohit Shetty has added like an item number with Katrina Kaif, so he's learned now. But Raju Hirani still needs to learn that lesson, that maybe focus a little bit more on the music. It almost reminds me of like a very Andaz Apna Apna soundtrack, where it feels from a time back when, like a classic kind of soundtrack, but to me it doesn't stand out. Like I know, like probably like Give Me Some Sunshine is a big college track, I imagine. I'm not sure. So Joy, what do you think?
It is for sure.
Yeah, like 3 chords, guitar, and then just annoy the crap out of
Like
everybody.
you learn the guitar and then you learn the song, this and Hotel California, and you're done.
Yeah. Basically, the whole idea is to, pataw a girl with it, and then you're done. Like now add Tum Hi Ho to the mix, and you're done.
The Sunshiny, the song takes a new meaning altogether.
Yeah. So, what do you think of the soundtrack, Sujay?
I pretty much, because this is a Shantanu Moitra soundtrack, and I don't think it's mediocre, to be honest. I really like Zubi Dubi, and I like Give Me Some Sunshine. But my favorite, like what Paresh mentioned, Behti Hawa Sadhavo, Shan just flies through this song, man. So good.
And Shan is one of those singers that you can tell when he's happy with the track, because you can almost hear the smile in his voice when he's singing it.
Yeah. Like Udit Narayan, almost. Like
you can hear that he's happy to sing the song. But I think, again, the fact that they rolled that track, as sentimental as it was, over a car on an aerial shot, it just hits my nostalgia feels, hits my bro nostalgia feels. Again, I know your listeners are going to be like, "Yeah, kahan se leke aaya isko, yaar?" But that's where I am. I'm at the point in my life, what you brought, Asim, is that I'm 43. I've got a handful of guy friends, and I miss them all. It's just where I am.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. But also, you are also like in the Midwest. Would you recommend this to Gora people, this movie, for example? Do they ever ask you about Bollywood movies or recommendations? Which one to watch?
Yes. If someone asked me, I would give them Three Idiots. I would give them ZNMD. I would recommend an old school Amitabh movie here and there. But
which one?
Okay, Amitabh Bachchan. Two versions, right? There's either Diwar or Amar Akbar Anthony.
Ooh, I mean, this is such a hard question. You just casually drop, Sujoy. This is like a whole podcast. Like
it is, right? But if you want Amitabh Bachchan in his big dick energy on the table, Diwar. You want Amitabh Bachchan where he's more nuanced and learned his craft, and you can see that next step is about to happen. Amar Akbar Anthony.
Yeah, I was going to say Dawn. That was going to be my go-to.
No. Dawn, another podcast altogether. If you have me back, I'll come back. Right? Yeah. But when I get asked for folks, I say this, and I say this from the most sincere spot of my desiness, is I never recommend a Shahrukh Khan movie. Not for the reason of the fact that I have a problem with it. I feel like Shahrukh Khan's best movies, I've always said this on Twitter and everywhere else, is Chak De and Swades. You know why? Because he's not playing that smarmy son of a bitch I want to beat up in an alley. He's very one note. And people will say, oh no, he's dynamic. Oh my God, I'll fall in love with him. Every time he smiles and his eyes squint, I'm like, chaped marne ka dil karta yaar. Swades, Chak De. If I get more of that Shahrukh Khan in the future, I'm willing to watch the movies. But if I have to do an entry level, I always recommend someone go, try Three Idiots, try ZNMD, try Kai Poche, like try those. Like then if you find you're wanting to go to the superstar level and you just want to watch a spectacle, Shahrukh Khan's your man. Go for that. They're coming for you.
Yeah, they're coming for me. They're
coming for me. Damn it.
Let's wrap it up. I'm glad to hear that. I think we're all still very positive about this movie.
It has its flaws. 100% has so many flaws, but I think it's still a good movie.
Yeah, I think this is as complete of a discussion we can have about this movie. I mean, we could still talk 40 minutes about it. I still have, like, even the ending, sometimes I have issues with, like, we mentioned it a little bit, but overall, it's a very strong one for me. I'm glad I revisited it. Sujoy, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at 93K, and you can follow the Khandaan Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Khandaan Podcast.
And you'll be dropping a new mixtape. We were supposed to drop Amrita's essay on Amitabh Bachchan, speaking of Amitabh, but it's slightly been delayed. But, we've made a promise, commitment kar di hai, so, it's gonna come there.
Ek baar tune commitment kar di, to tu khud ki nahi sunta.
Exactly. And you can subscribe for $1 and get access to all of the fun and the content. Paresh, man, it was a pleasure, true pleasure having you on, and we have to do it again. But where can people find you online? And again, where can people find the Curry Smugglers?
Okay, so Twitter is kind of where I am right now. Twitter and Instagram. Twitter would be at Paresh G, Paresh G. Not to be confused with JI. Don't give me any respect on that one. You can find the Curry Smugglers at Curry Smugglers on Twitter, and then currysmugglers.com, launching soon. But honestly, go subscribe to the podcast. I'm not a big tweeter on that account. I would love for you just to listen to the music and kind of feed the work. And I must say it, if y'all want to come for me for the SRK hate on this podcast, bring it. Let's go.
Exactly. Paresh is responsible for his own words.
I am.
Don't come for us.
Also, please follow Khandaan Podcast. I think that these guys, as a guest and as a listener, as a friend, I think that Asim, Sujoy, Amrita, and all the other guests have truly raised the level of discussion on what it means to be a Bollywood fan. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you. We didn't pay you at all to say that. We're very happy. Very kind.
You did not. As long as I get to hang out with your beautiful young daughter once in a while and chill with her and talk to her, I'm good. So
yeah, she's missing her Paresh Chachu. And also, if you are checking out the Curry Smugglers, check out those chill episodes because they're genuinely really, really good. So I just want to plug that again. We're on Khandaan Podcast. Drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. The team will be back next episode again. And follow us on TikTok. Lots of things happening that Sujoy is posting there too. We're on the cusp of going viral. So if you can help us, that would be great. Thank you for listening, guys.
Khandaan Podcast for acting.
Achha, so I know we're recording.
Yeah.
But as Sujoy, I asked Asim how much could I dunk on Shahrukh Khan, and he goes, "Tumhe dhoond ke maar denge log." I'm like, okay.
Okay. Shahrukh Khan is not even in this movie.
That's what my question.
I have a point I want to make, and the dunkability that I wrote that joke last night, and I was like, dude, iska delivery maana, like the physical risk I put myself to.
It's okay, dude. It's okay. I think just our audience is quite nice in general. It won't be that bad.